Today is all about open source community and really when it comes to package management, right? And how that affects the software supply chain. So stop trusting packages, start verifying them. That's our vibe for the day. And really, we're unboxing the Spectra Assure community. So with us today, I'm super excited to have sponsoring as part of this, the Spectra Collective, which is our community arm here at ReversingLabs. And it's built for developers by developers with also security in mind. So you can have development meet security, right? We actually have two top tier speakers today that I'm super excited I was able to get on their calendars. Our co-founder and chief software architect, Tomislav, as well as our director of technical product management, Dave. So before we dive into it, I'd love to introduce both of you to the folks at home, get to know your voice a little bit more about you and what brings you to today's topic. So, Tomislav, without any further ado, tell us a little bit
Hey
about
everyone.
who you are.
Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Tomislav. I'm the chief software architect and one of the co-founders of ReversingLabs. And I've been working on Spectra Assure Community for quite a long time now, and I'm very excited that now we're gonna spend some time talking about all the wonderful things that you can do with it.
Yeah, I'm excited too because you can also feel the magic. Your eyes light up a little bit when you talk about community and Spectre Assure. So I'm just very excited to be talking about this today with you. As this is kind of your baby. So thanks for being here with us today. Dave, what about you? Tell us a little
Yeah,
bit about
thanks.
who you are.
Yeah, well, it is an exciting time here at Reversing Labs. I've been on board about 3 years, so I'm the director of technical product management. I've been in application security 20 years, and I was a developer prior to that. But I think what we're going to talk about today is really timely, and I think it's there's a lot of additional information that we're going to provide to help everyone get the most out of Spectra Assure Community because we really just launched this about 1 week ago, so it's hot off the presses, and we have a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Thanks, Dave. So let's dive in. Whether you're a maintainer protecting your project from hijacking or an AppSec Pro, managing complex, dependencies, this is all for you today, as well as those of you who are just in it to build. Today we're unboxing Spectra Assure Community. So we're educating you guys on what's the latest and greatest. We've had a new round of features come out that I'm really excited to share with everyone. And today we're actually going to get into some demos so you can see that value in real time. So, Tomislav, I'd like to start with you. And, as I alluded to in our introduction, this really was your brainchild. So, do you mind telling us a little bit more about the community? Tell us why this is so important to you and what makes this really more than a hobby project for you, because it really is part of our strategy moving forward and how we want to interact with the community and, really just doing our due diligence and making sure we're giving back to people who are doing so much for the community already.
Well, absolutely. Spectre Assure Community started a few years back, actually following the software supply chain attack on SolarWinds. Us at Reversing Labs got focused almost exclusively on the software supply chain issue. It is not an open source threat by itself, but even at that time, there were quite a few high profile open source package maintainers which were compromised. So we started to connect the dots and we said, okay, so it can happen to an open source maintainer. It can happen to a commercial entity as well. All these big enterprises do depend on open source for the most part, and a lot of these applications are built with open source. Uh, some estimates go as high as 85% to 90% of like open source components being this, backend for the application itself. So we had this idea very early to say, okay, open source is important. We need to protect it. So can we dedicate some resources to do threat hunting and threat protection of these open source repositories? So we started to do that, and we published quite a few threat research pieces about, what types of threats are trying to target open source publishers and maintainers. So as we started to amass this knowledge, we said, okay, well, instead of just reading a blog every so often when we find something super interesting, wouldn't it be great if we had a page where anybody could just go find a package and see if it's secure or not? Secure at that time, TBD, what that actually meant, but primarily means no software supply chain attacks or threats or malware or tampering of things of that nature. So over the years, as we were building it, we started to add more and more features so it becomes something that you can actually integrate in any of your workflows. And we'll see a few demos today from Dave and myself about what we built recently. But we went from here's an index of all the packages to now you can have accounts, now you can use APIs, and the latest and greatest is here's a bunch of tools in our toolbox, and you can easily plug that into your workflows. We have quite a few surprises in the next couple of weeks and months, so stay tuned. But this idea, as I said, has been evolving in ReversingLabs for a very long time, and it's a passion of ours that will not be easily dropped.
I know that's why I'm here. So
There you
I'm
go.
loving this ride we've been on for the past year and really just kind of the momentum we have right now with unleashing these new features and getting feedback from the community in real time, which is kind of there's that magic intersection, right? Where community and corporate kind of marry, but it's all for the greater good. How do you automate faster than evil? I've heard some people say, which I love personally. I just think it's funny. So we always talk about how there are other tools, right, that are investigating, these different vulnerabilities. But why is it so important to bring that enterprise class binary analysis to open source projects? And really, why isn't code just like flat out code analysis enough, in your opinion?
Well, I told this to a customer that I was talking to yesterday. No malware author has ever given me their source code, and they don't intend to start. So I think we need to start with how the malware is actually going to be proliferating through the system. There's a whole bunch of programming language communities which don't necessarily ship with source code. So you think about NuGet, for example, that's all compiled binaries. You think about Python, you can have compiled Python bytecode floating around. So our view of the world for the last 17 years was we need to stay ahead of the attackers, and that means applying state-of-the-art reverse engineering tools to be able to disassemble, decompile, they understand what the code is actually inclined to do. That's why you'll see things in our platform that don't really exist anywhere else. This is like what kind of behaviors is this code going to exhibit if you were to run it? That's us looking at the code through static analysis, trying to figure it all out, and then connecting the dots, saying like, oh, well, these behaviors are exclusively found in malicious code, or these combinations of behaviors trigger our machine learning algorithms to tell you, okay, so someone is, playing around with this binary. And these are, analysis are done in real time. As you just publish a package, it will take probably a minute for us to be able to say, oh, there's a new version of this package that we're tracking. We'll ingest it, we'll analyze it, we ran it through all algorithms, and then it's going to tell you, okay, is it safe or not? There's many more aspects of safety, but focusing on the malware and tampering right now is prudent because we have had so many software supply chain attacks in the last 6 to 9 months that have had, I like to say, just to kind of drive that point home, 5 of the top 10 packages by download count on npm have been compromised in the last 9 months. And then you had Axios just the other week, and then you had LightLM and all the other things that people actually use and care about have been compromised, and they have been supply chain attack vessels by themselves.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point when you look at it too, just of how widespread NPM is. And then you look at how many of the top 10 alone and why, most people are like, oh, well, that's interesting. But it's like, that's the largest attack surface vector. Like, why go for like a smaller project when you're like, one of these big ones, top 10, it's got a lot of use. So you go for the big or go home, right? I think the other thing that you brought up too was the malware tampering piece, because a lot of these other tools or tools in general, right, I should say, is, table stakes to be in this, sector is just being able to say, hey, there's a vulnerability. I think we're at a point in the maturity of the market, though, where like that day's come and gone. We're just saying, hey, we've looked for vulnerabilities is good enough. And especially with what you're talking about and looking at these software supply chain attacks really in the past few years, where they've come down to either secrets leaking or malware and tampering, where vulnerability checking is just not good enough anymore. So you really do need to start looking into the different behaviors of these packages to make sure that you are safe. Is that fair to say?
Well, the way I like to think about it is if a package has a vulnerability, you might be exposed to certain risks. If you're using that code in a specific way, it's reachable, all this AppSec stuff that we worry about. If you pull down a package which has malware in it, you will definitely have a bad day. There's not a maybe.
Yeah.
All these malicious packages are created in such a way that they will auto execute as soon as you install them. And as long as that's going to happen, all your secrets are going to fly out the window, and those secrets are going to get abused in minutes, really. You don't have to look very far back to see that happening. So Team PCP is one of these threat actors that has openly talked about the number of secrets they've collected in the latest set of attacks. Shai-Hulud, as this first worm that has hit NPM, has been leaking not only secrets, but also your code and all the other things publicly as well. So malware is a serious thing, and we've always, in our kind of matrix of risks, we put it on the top. So if there's like malware and tampering and vulns and all the other things, malware's first. That's the
Yeah.
first thing you have to deal with.
Yeah.
Nothing else matters. And then if you fear malware, that's good, but there's still risks that you need to take into consideration if you're bringing in another dependency or if you're updating an existing one.
Yeah. Dave, I know you've been a little quiet here. Any comments, thoughts, feedback on what we've been chatting about so far?
Yeah, so when I first started to get interested in software supply chain security, it was back when SolarWinds happened. That was in December of 2020 when it was kind of announced. And that was kind of an eye opener for me because, like I said, I've been in application security for so many years, and it was always about chasing vulnerabilities. We need to find the vulnerabilities, we need to fix the vulnerabilities, and then we'll be safe. And then SolarWinds happened, and 18,000 organizations got infected with this malware. Where SolarWinds, their build system had been infiltrated, and there was malicious code inserted. And then at the end of the day, the release that SolarWinds put out was malicious and it was compromised. And that kind of like it was a paradigm shift for me because everything I was doing wasn't geared towards finding those type of things. So, well, that's not good. I thought it was only about vulnerabilities. And so that's kind of how I ended up at ReversingLabs, because, as Tomislav was kind of alluding to, we do this multi-dimensional analysis of a software binary. And that's been our core technology for 17 years as ReversingLabs has been around. But now we're applying that same multi-dimensional analysis to open source packages proactively. So when a new version gets published, we're very quickly picking it up, doing that analysis, and we make those results available to everybody for free on Spectra Assure Community, which is at https://secure.software. And we started just with a website, but we like early last year, we saw the value of what we were building on the community in terms of just the rich data set. And then it just, as Shai-Hulud happened and all these other things happened that Tomislav mentioned, it's just like become so much more important because the threat actors have moved to open source packages, and not only just the npm Python packages, but also the developer tooling. What the tools that developers use every day and that they kind of inherently trust, those are also being targeted. VS Code extensions, for example. There's just it's just kind of blown up in terms of the attack vectors and the attack surface. So that's what we're really trying to help address with Spectra Assure Community and the tools that we've released around that.
Good answer. So let's talk about like practicality, right? So we know oftentimes, we've talked about why we have this site, but let's talk about the people who are building these applications, okay? So we know that many package or repo maintainers, especially when we look at like Python or Ruby gems, it's often a team of one or two, right? It's always that XKCD of, Bob in Nebraska holding up this like giant contraption, right? And then that's never going to go out of style. Um, what makes it so difficult, though, for these small teams to adopt a test everything all the time approach? And how could something like secure.software help them? You know what I mean? To be able to see these things in real time? Or can we even do anything to help them? Dave, why
Sure.
don't you take this? Oh, Tomislav, go ahead.
Um, Either is fine. I think I wouldn't underestimate the level of effort and it takes to actually build an
Mhm.
open source and maintain an open source community. Every single one of these projects is community by itself. Meaning like there's message boards and issues and pull requests and all these things you have to manage. Thinking about building that software, it is also hard because you're kind of trying to build a complex software application based on many different dependencies built by other authors, and they all have their own communities and their own ideas of what their project should be about. So on the high end, I would say an open source project can have up to 10,000 different dependencies if you really try to kind of visualize the entire dependency tree. In npm specifically, that's very pronounced because there's a lot of these small packages which tend to do a set of functionalities which are commonly used and reused, and then they depend on others. So software moves at very great speed, especially in open source. You will have, and I've seen, packages which have thousands of versions. Essentially, every single time a pull request gets merged, another package version is created. So being able to kind of understand your entire dependency tree, being able to audit the whole thing to make sure that through a transitive dependency you aren't getting compromised is a job. And as Dave said, that's why we built these tools for the Spectra Assure community, because doing that consistently is, slowing down how often can you actually do the right thing, which is patch things for vulns and, add new features and all these things. So we wanted to create tools which made that easy, which is essentially point us to any dependency manifest that you have, and we're just going to look it up against the community, and we'll give you our opinion of whether or not these dependencies are the latest and greatest, have them been compromised, or do they have critical vulnerabilities you need to worry about, and so on and so forth. So all of these things in totality help you make better software essentially and keep that software up to date, because the reality is, like, even if you think only about vulnerabilities, they get discovered all the time, and the way
Mhm.
they get reported almost always is, well, it affects all the previous version of the software, which means that even if that might not always be true, vulnerabilities accumulate on older versions all the time, which if you're kind of tracking the numbers, it looks odd on your graph because it's just like this mountain that keeps growing
Yeah.
if you don't update. So that's why you want to update. The trick is all these latest software supply chain attacks that we're talking about have actually been, you know, proliferated through the ecosystem due to software updates. One of the things that we've been tracking as a company is, well, how often security tools like Dependabot are inadvertently updating people to the malicious version. And there are a few settings there nowadays that you could use. Things like, package cooldowns and so on are becoming much more common. But still, some software supply chain attacks take a while to be discovered. It's not always, the safest thing to say, oh, I'm just going to wait 7 days. Well, someone needs to look at that code within that 7 days to make sure it's actually safe. And that's the whole point of the Spectre Assure community. Within that cooldown period that everyone now has, 7 days, I think we all agreed is sufficient. Uh, Both automation and our threat analysts, we're all looking at these packages to make sure that they're actually safe. What's missing is this enforcement mechanism, which is part of our toolbox today. So if you want to ensure that you're actually pulling what you think you're pulling, you kind of run a scan. And that scan is going to point into certain directions where you need to take a look and do some more work. But the whole idea is to make this both streamlined and as integrated as possible in the existing workflows. Some of the demos Dave and I are going to show is just like how easy it is actually to come to a solution and to be safe.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that any better myself. Obviously, I'm like stuttering, just being like, that was really concise and to the point. I like that. Um, the one thing I do, I'm going to ask that uncomfortable question in the room. You know, we've said this is something we believe that should be free and truly be free. So, I have to look out for folks that are developers where open source is really run on free software and they expect to be truly free. So I just want to make sure, you know, bait and switch tactics, we definitely see them out there, right? Where companies are like, oh yeah, it's free, but then you have to give your data and all that stuff. Or, we only give you like one tiny piece of the puzzle. How, would you say that we are comparing with that? Can you show us how we're avoiding the problem? Are we ensuring that users with free accounts get the info so they can act on it in real time? What's the real difference between, our community tier? And then we do have Community Plus, but that's, just a little bit of a bump. So can you walk us through some of that?
Absolutely. So community is absolutely free. You can join, sign up today, get an account, and you'll get 100,000 lookups a month, forever, really, to look up any number of packages that you are currently using. 100,000 is very generous. We've measured it, and it should be well enough to get you through the month. We do have Community Plus, as Katie just said. Community Plus is really for, I would say, smaller businesses and some enterprises when the volume of data and the number of users far surpasses the one developer account that we're trying to protect. So if you want to do like full-blown automation with like hundreds of people pulling in dependencies and analyzing all of them, you will need more than 100,000, unfortunately. And at that stage, we feel like it's fair enough to ask you for a little bit of money to protect the entire organization. I feel like software supply chain is worth that. And we have been working very hard to figure out what that limit is, and we feel that 100,000 should be more than good enough for most folks to kind of protect themselves individually. And if you have friends and they're working with you, it really doesn't matter. You can bring them along, and everybody has their own limits.
Yeah, great answer. Dave, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just that the community resources that we've just launched or just released, it's complementary to what Spectra Assure, our supply chain product, has done, has always done, which is look at the final build before release. So which was really kind of aimed at the SolarWinds situation or the 3CX situation. A number of supply chain attacks have infiltrated build systems and downstream systems to where the final release is compromised without anyone knowing it. So we've always been excellent at catching those type of attacks. The community and the OSS related resources with that we have now is like I said, very complementary in that these can run kind of upstream of that. So it allows you to do a check on your OSS pre-build, so that you're not going through the process of doing a release and then later find out, oh, we have a malicious OSS component. No, you can catch it much earlier now, and you can automate it so that it happens very rapidly. It's just API calls. It's not an actual binary scan like our full product is. But obviously, with the full product, you get everything with Spectra Assure Community in an unlimited way. So you get the binary scanning to do the checks for the SolarWinds style attacks, and you get all of the OSS checks earlier as well in an unlimited way. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that point.
Good point to make. Thanks, Dave. So we've been playing a little bit of buzzword bingo, like let's be honest, right? We've mentioned software supply chain security a few times, but the one buzzword we haven't mentioned, which unfortunately I am going to bring up now, is AI, right? We've gone this far without saying AI. I'm a little proud of us because we're 28 minutes in and we haven't said it. So props to us. But we have to talk about it, right? It seems like AI is being used everywhere. It's helping develop software faster. It can help find vulnerabilities. It can also insert vulnerabilities. it can also help create more sophisticated malware. How do we see that noise kind of permeating in the actual threat and in the market? And how can we help folks who are worried about like AI written code? These types of things, we want to make sure that we're helping people build security baked in from the get-go. So how can we help do that? First let's talk about it. And Dave, I know you definitely have some strong thoughts on it. So let's start with
I can start off, sure. So there's a lot happening in the AI assisted coding space right now, obviously. Claude Code is being adopted very quickly. And there's what I see a lot right now in terms of protecting against vulnerable AI generated code is better prompts, to more precise and focused prompts so instead of saying like, okay, make sure you build this app securely, which is very general, you could say, make sure you have added CSRF protection using the Flask WTF package, and then make sure you are verifying every post request validates the token. You can be very more specific, and there's quite a few resources out there to help folks who are doing that AI assisted coding with their prompts so that the end result is a more secure application. But the other side of that is, are you making sure that the AI is incorporating safe dependencies? And I don't see a lot out there in that regard, because maybe AI builds you an app with no OAuth top 10 vulnerabilities, no SQL injection, etc. But it's brought in a malicious NPM package and you've incorporated that into your app as a dependency, for example. So that's really where Spectra Assure Community can come in as a helpful tool, in that it is only looking at open source packages, and it's only looking at those building blocks versus like, the first party proprietary code that the AI is writing. It's the dependencies and making sure those are being brought in, that only secure ones are being brought in.
Mm. And Tomislav, I think you probably have some strong opinions on, AI tools like Claude Code, ChatGPT, or even MCP servers. What are your thoughts on how to connect data sources with these things and helping people bring in secure dependencies from the get-go?
Yeah, I mean, what Dave's saying is absolutely right. In fact, our threat research team is right now finishing up a blog that's going to be published early next week about exactly that. People using AI coding assistants in an unsafe way and letting AI coding assistants bring in malware into their environment. They are certainly powerful tools. Many have adopted them fully. And Katie, I think this is probably the good time to jump into the demo to kind of show and tell a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'll share my screen, which has a pre-recorded demo of Claude Code, using Claude Code to actually uh, make a new application from scratch. So I'm just going to start playing it, then I'll talk you through what's happening on the screen, and talk about how we protect people who are actually using Claude Code to wipe code. So here I'm just making a new project, starting Claude, trusting this repository that I made, and I'm going to ask Claude to make me a very simple npm package. The whole point is going to be, well, a user is going to submit a version string through the command line. I want to validate this version string as a valid version string. But I want to make this application for my own uses, and I just want to use the most popular npm packages only. So what Claude's going to do, it's going to think about first, what dependencies should I use? And here you'll see on the screen, it's picking out three dependencies, and it's trying to assess which versions of these dependencies should it use. By default, which is very good, it's trying to use the latest versions. Now you'll notice on the screen that we made a skill for Claude Code, which instructs Claude to actually scan every single dependency with something called RL Protect. RL Protect is our tool that we built, and it's on our page as well, which scans all these packages for safety issues. As you can see on the screen on the top, it found no issues. So I'm just going through the motions of building this application, you'll notice that I didn't ask for any kind of security scan. I just naturally asked it to build me an app. And because we made a skill to scan any kind of installed package dependency or required package dependency, Claude knew that it should use our tool to actually check if these things are safe before starting to write a bit of code. So it's going to do this for a bit. I think it's a couple of minutes of vibe coding, or just proper vibe coding experience, I would call it. You don't really check very hard what the code that the AI is writing is doing. You're just kind of hoping it's going to do the right thing. And then you get to the scary bit. The scary bit is running npm install. Npm install is going to do the dangerous bit, which is install all these dependencies, which is why I'm glad that all of them got checked. And now I know that everything that Claude has actually built is going to be done safely. Now, it does have a bug in its own code, which is I think funny, and I've left it in. So it's going to figure out, this library doesn't behave this way. I need to fix my unit test that it wrote. So it's going to fix that. And after that, it's going to run the tests and figure out that the actual application works just fine. Now, this was all kind of done very naturally, very quickly. I wanted to show that you can actually use it on a existing project as well. Like I want to scan my package JSON for any kind of safety issues. So again, it's going to invoke the skill, and it's going to talk to our community page, look at all of the release and develop dependencies, and give me a report. Again, no issues found. That's what we expect. But there's multiple skills. Some other skills can actually give me more details about, well, what's in these dependencies, if in case there are issues, right? There's a vuln, well, what kind of vuln there is. So I can just ask for more details, and it's going to do exactly that. It calls another skill for interpretation, saves a temporary report for me, and it's going to write down everything basically that you can see on the Spectra Assure Community page. And then actually reason on the results as well. You can ask it follow-up questions. And then I want to do something which is super unsafe. I'm just going to pause this for a second. So UA parser.js, for those that do not know, has had a software supply chain incident a couple of years ago. And I wanted to kind of showcase that it will actually protect you from installing unsafe dependencies, even if you asked it in a natural language. So I'm not asking it to scan anything. I'm just asking it, is it wise or good, as I put it at the end, to install this application? And again, it figures out, oh, I need to scan this with Spectra Assure Community, asks for approval, obviously, and then gets a fail because, yes, this package has been compromised. And it gets me all the details why I shouldn't be using this, including all of the references to advisories and everything else that you would actually need to kind of figure it out. Like, is this a wise choice or not? So yeah, that was a very quick demo of just kind of the usefulness of Spectra Assure community data in this new world where humans aren't necessarily writing all the code and machines are not necessarily verifying all the code, not until you ask them nicely.
I love that you can, but it takes what we're seeing though in the market right now where it is vibe coder. So you have that natural language in there, but it's simple, easy plug and play, but also making sure you're protected, right? Even when you get down to like attempting maybe to accidentally download a malicious thing, it's like, no, we might want to think about this. Um, those of you at home, I know we just went through a lot. There was a lot to unpack there that was rich and good. So if you have questions, please pop them into the Q&A. We do have Tomislav here to answer them. Dave, I know you have played around with these Claude skills quite a bit. Any thoughts, feedback that you have on using them? Because I know you, like I said, use them quite a bit and have helped work closely with this project, but it's kind of amazing just how quickly you can get started with this. I think that's kind of what blows me away.
Yeah, I think I'd like to highlight, Tomislav kind of mentioned it, but just to focus on the fact that once you've installed the skills that we have provided into Claude Code, you don't have to explicitly tell it to make sure to use the skills when you're building something. It will figure out the situations where it has a skill that would be valuable and useful, and it will use it. And it does it automatically. So as long as you've got the skills installed, you have some degree of protection when it comes to unsafe open source automatically. So that's a key point. And I think that skills, from our view, what we're seeing are going to be the real winner compared to like MCP servers. And whereas it's more general, there's a little bit more overhead with MCP servers if you go that route to provide AI that same type of skill. But with these skills, which are more native plugins for the AI assisted coding tool, it's a little bit more seamless to get up and running. Now we have MCP servers available as well for the Spectra Assure community, but the skills is, I think, going to be hugely popular going forward when it comes to this.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The one thing I do want to bring up, right? Like, let's be honest. When developers, hear the term security scanners, your ears kind of perk up being like, oh, that's going to be way more work, right? So how does this actually reduce the stress and work of a developer? Because that is one thing I think we should be pointing out here, right? Like, we saw it in real time. We're not sure if there was some magic on the back end that Tomislav worked to make it go seamless, but how does this actually help developers reduce stress and workload, simply put?
Absolutely. And Dave's going to show it in real time with our GitHub integration. But I just want to highlight one thing before we get to the demo is you kind of choose your own comfort level as well. Spectra Assure Community comes with profiles, and there's the hardened profile that is there by default because we want you to be safe. But there's also baseline and minimum as well. Minimum is truly the minimum you should be doing to protect your software supply chain from malicious attacks. It's literally only looking at malicious code that has been vetted by ReversingLabs analysts. Those are truly, you shouldn't use them. So if you are looking to use us as this hassle-free way, we can start there and then grow into more advanced security things like patching for vulns and hunting secrets and all these things. But the bare minimum, which is why we call it minimum, is you don't want malware in your software supply chain. So start there.
Mhm.
Yeah, so with that preface on how easy it is to use, I thought I would, hopefully I'm sharing and everyone can see, but I have my browser open. And first of all, I thought I would actually pull up Spectra Assure Community, which we haven't actually shown until now. But so this is community at secure, https secure.software. So this is the web interface, and this is where you can sign up, register to get an API token. They'll give you that free 100,000 API lookups per month. So that once you have that token, you can do things like use RL Protect. So RL Protect is mainly aimed at CI/CD pipelines and automating the analysis in a pipeline. In addition to that, we have a GitHub action that essentially is using RL Protect behind the scenes, but it's in the GitHub action format, making it really easy to, if you're using GitHub for your workflows, to plug in RL Protect and your OSS protection there. And then there's the Claude Code, the AI skills that we mentioned here. And we also have a ChatGPT, custom GPT. If you just want to chat with ChatGPT about secure and insecure open source packages, you can do that. But what I wanted to do for the demo on my side, and this is going to be a live demo. I have a video as a backup if something goes wrong. But so I've essentially created a copy of the OWASP Juice Shop app, which is a Node.js web app. So it's a snapshot, and what I want to do is show a GitHub action in action. And the key here is the package.json that comes with this Juice Shop app. Obviously, it references a bunch of dependencies. Maybe I can make this a little bit bigger. A bunch of dependencies, release dependencies. Scrolling down, you see a bunch of dev dependencies, and RL Protect can be set up to scan all of these dependencies quickly because it's just an API lookup. You can only look at release dependencies, or you can both look at release and dev dependencies. You can look at the transitive dependencies. You can select the depth. So it's very configurable on what you want to scan. But let me hop over to the GitHub Actions. And I have one workflow called OSS Safety Check via RL Action. And let me just go ahead and open up the YAML for that, and we can take a look at the workflow. I've just added a couple steps to show how you can get this scan working in an automated way with that free token. Essentially, I have a step called OSS Safety Check. It's using the GitHub action that we've published. And actually, I have that up over here. So this is the GitHub action published out on the marketplace available. And so I'm leveraging that here in this YAML. And it takes really only needs one thing. It needs that community token that you've generated as a Spectra Assure community user. Once you've got that set up as an environment variable, there's various input parameters you give the action, including the name of the manifest file that you're targeting for the scan, in this case, package.json. We support other manifest files, in Python, Ruby, as well as NPM. In this case, I picked the baseline profile. Tomislav mentioned 3 sort of canned profiles that we provide: baseline, minimum, and hardened. I'm choosing the middle one, baseline here. And then I'm under the check depths parameter, I'm saying I'm only going to check the release. I'm going to not care about the dev dependencies right now. I'm only going to check release dependencies. And I'm going to say output the results. I'm telling RL Protect here in our action to output the report to an OSS safety report.json. There's also a log file, and then I have a final step that archives those reports, that archives the JSON report and the log file. So with every run of the workflow, I'll get a copy of the safety report as well as the log file. So let me go ahead and run this, and we'll see it in action. And that's kicking off now. Let's see how we're progressing. So it's checking out the code and doing the safety check now. You can see it's leveraging RL Protect version 1.0.1 currently, and it's actually finished already. So let me scroll back up. We can see the results. So in this case, we've found that 4 packages have a fail status. However, 58 pass and 7 are a warrant, right? So, but we have 4 that are failed. So that therefore the overall workflow has failed. We've essentially broken the build here because of those 4 failures. And the 4 failures are listed right here. So I can go take a look at these packages on Spectra Assure Community. I can figure out, what is specifically failing about it. And then from there, I can figure out remediation steps. There's only 4 in this case, so it's very manageable. But essentially what you have is a pre-build check. So in this case, our GitHub action has detected basically unsafe or unacceptable NPM dependencies. And so we don't really need to go forward with any more of the workflow. We should really end it right there and figure out what the problem is and address the issues. If I wanted more details, I have a couple options. I can obviously hop over to Spectra Assure Community website and take a look and investigate there. I also have the safety report saved as an artifact here, and the JSON report that I mentioned is there and generated. And obviously you can automate. That JSON report is very conducive to automating post the scan or post the workflow run. So I can take additional steps based on that JSON report if I want. But I just want to show kind of how simple it is with this GitHub action to get this protection automated in a pipeline. And that's really the end of my demo. I didn't need to use my video. Tomislav, is there anything you'd want to point out that I may have not talked about in this GitHub action?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is obviously great. I would just say, like, back to my point of like the minimum checks. I'm willing to bet that if you were to change from baseline to minimum, this would pass, but you're still probably failing because of vulnerabilities and exposed secrets that are actually being detected as part of the baseline category. So 4 dependencies is not too bad, given that there's 69 in this particular package, and that juice shop is intentionally vulnerable application.
That's right.
You still need to kind of think about these things moving forward. I wouldn't be too worried about breaking the build. Breaking the build is sometimes the right thing to do, especially as Dave said, these are done pre-build, and this is intentional because a lot of the software supply chain attacks are going to be run as soon as you hit build, and at that time you're both infected, and in Dave's case, all of the secrets have been lifted from this GitHub runner, including his token for Spectra Assure Community as well. So do this pre-build, fail on malware to start with, and then grow into all the other checks which are advisable. We have profiles, and you can actually commit those profiles to your GitHub repository as well. So you can, allow list certain dependencies, or you can suppress some of the policy checks that we do as well. It is very easy to make it your own. I wouldn't feel overwhelmed to start with just malware, because honestly, if it fails because of that, it saved your day.
That's right. That's the minimum profile that you mentioned, is just checking for that malware. Yeah. Other thing that I thought of that might be of interest is we talked about kind of that waiting period where in this day and age, it's not safe to pick up a new package version, as soon as it's published. It's smart to basically not trust something for a few days, whether it's 7 days or something else. But the tools that we have support that concept through our governance configuration. So it's policy-driven analysis, and one of the items in the policy profile is a configuration saying how many days should pass before I trust a new package version. And that is something that's really important with the type of attacks that are so targeted on the very popular packages now. They're getting the latest version, of a very popular package, whereas in the past, maybe it was thought to be trustworthy, but now we know the latest version, even if it's a very popular package, is not necessarily trustworthy.
Yeah, I mean, that's always something I kind of preach, right? Where you want to live not on the edge, but close to the edge, right? So living on the edge is where, yeah, you're scaling, you're automating things, but it might burn you every now and then because, like you said, usually it's the latest that has the issue. So you want to live close to the edge, wait a few days and see what happens. And it's great that like policy can be in place so you can do that automatically, right? To make sure you're not getting burned by that. Folks at home, if you have questions, we've shown you a lot today, please pop them in the chat or the Q&A while we have a couple minutes left. I think, we've gone through a lot today. We've talked about a lot of different things, maybe brought up some buzzwords, couldn't be helped, right? But, if you had one thing for folks to take away from today, I'd love to get your thoughts on it. I know for me, I like the fact that we're making this where we can meet people where they're at on their security journey, right? I think inherently as security vendors, you want to think like everybody's going for that top 5, right? You should be aspiring for the 5 out of 5 and making sure things are secure. But the thing is everybody's at a different level in their maturity journey. So you have to be able to meet these folks where they're at and then provide them that guidance of how to get to the 5. Because the thing is you got to start from somewhere, right? And I think the best analogy I've gotten, Tomislav, you and your team have done a great job of implementing this type of vision, but it's going to look daunting at first, especially if you're first starting. But like my dad always says, like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's kind of how you have to approach these things, where you might start at a lower security threshold, but that's because you want to make sure you're getting all the severe stuff first, and then you move to baseline and then hardening. So for me, that's one thing I really do take away from today. And I'm just grateful you guys were able to show it live in real time. So Dave, what are your final thoughts from today?
Final thoughts. Well, I think that there's a fundamental shift happening in the SDLC with AI. I think it's evolving every day. And so the threat actors are able to take advantage of changes, because when changes like this happen, there's new technologies and there's people that are unfamiliar with the new technologies and how to use them securely. So when it comes to the development environments, open source is going to continue to be used heavily. It's going to continue to be a factor and a major part of a code base. So with the tools that we have with Spectra Assure Community, you have some options starting free to protect yourself and your application environments.
Tomislav, what about you?
Well, a lot of times when I see public discourse in the wake of yet another software supply chain attack is, well, how does this keep happening and what do I do?
Yeah.
I like to think that we are trying to help with what do we do, because there are solutions, and we just demonstrated a few that are freely available and available to absolutely everybody, and that's our mission really. We want to help people protect their software supply chain from all these threats. Open source folks are exposed at the most risk really. They are very serious actors targeting them. Nation states are very interested in software supply chain because that, XKCD with this guy from Nebraska is true. There are people who have been, targeted because they are maintainers of prominent software packages. And if we can help make the world a better place just by a little bit and helping them worry a little bit less, that's what we want to do. So if you have the time, I encourage you to check out software security from Spectra Assure Community. It is there to help, and if we can improve, people like Katie, Dave, and myself are happy to hear what we could do better.
Well, Tomislav, Dave, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me today, kind of walk through some of these things. I know I enjoyed today. I know the community will get a lot out of it. For those of you at home, feel free to check out our resources. We put them in the tab, but just so you're aware, secure.software, it is that easy. That is our community site. So feel free, create an account, go check out your packages and learn something new. We also, like Tomislav and Dave mentioned, we do have the Claude skills, as well as the custom GPT, if that's your flavor, and RL Protect. So make sure you check those out. And then next month, again, we'll see you third Tuesday of the month at 11 a.m. Eastern. That's all for now. Till next time.